Hello and welcome to the Believing Better series, day 3. My guest today is Malerie Veillon. Malerie is an integrative marketing strategist. We will tell you all about what that means. She has been a client of mine for the last few years. I'm not even sure, because you did a few things with me and then you came through the integrative coach training and you are now in Self-Healing Masters, and she is the master behind my marketing and strategy that we have been doing in the integrative life. So with no further ado, welcome, Malerie.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
I was thinking on the drive here, which is a few feet, the drive from my house to my business. So when I was driving up here, I was like, Malerie and I have come full circle. The picture that I posted earlier was one that we took in the coffee shop when I asked her to do photography for me for the business. And this is where the idea was born about this need for entrepreneurs. At that moment, I think that's kind of where it all began. And taking it back, Malerie's mom and I were, her parents and I are friends. So she's the same age as one of my children, but I was Malerie's 6th grade catechism teacher. And here we are still talking about the same thing, but on a deeper level. It's more about this deeper relationship with spirituality.
Absolutely. And I never even knew that there was like the label that was spirituality before I fell into this understanding of it. Was like, if you're spiritual, this is going into another belief, spirituality is not religion. And so if you just claim to be spiritual, then you're not actually religious. It's another belief that's like baloney.
It was one of the funnest things when you realized, we started questioning a few things, and you looked at me one day and you were just like, wait a minute. It was almost like you had just discovered, I don't want to say it in case someone's children are listening, but you had just discovered the Santa and Easter Bunny. Like, you were like, what? Wait a minute. If that's not true, then what else am I believing? Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember that. And you remind me all the time. So yeah, it's like, then my mind's like, well, now what?
Yeah, it was pivotal because I had so much for I had so much empathy or compassion for the innocence that you were coming from. It was pivotal for me to be in that. And I remember just laughing and not telling you anything. And I was just, I don't know, what else do you think? And you were just like, I'm kind of freaking out. Like, the ground that was beneath me is no longer there, because the things that I believed, the things that I clung to are like not there anymore. So let's talk about that.
It was a weird feeling. It's like you said, like all the walls that were there just like instantly just vanished. Not that they came crashing down, they just vanished. They just were not there. And it was like this feeling of openness and like fearing how open it was. It was like everything that I thought was true is not true. And I didn't even have to go and do the research like my brain always told me to do, to go and find out, to prove that it wasn't true or that it was. I just knew, like, oh, I don't have to think like that anymore. And then instantly I was like, okay, now what do I do? I don't know what to do. Oh my God, I'm freaking out because I don't know what to do. I don't know what to think. What do I think if I don't think that anymore? Like, who am I if I don't think that?
The freedom, the expansiveness and the freedom, like the brain instantly says, and then what? And now what? And what? And starts, because our brain is a problem solver.
Yeah.
And you just told it there was no problem. It's like, actually, there is no problem. And it's like, well, what are we going to do now?
Who were we talking to the other day that we were talking about the problem with having this much freedom? Like, even like in this new business it's not new, but what can I do in my business? Or like, if there are no rules, like if I make up the rules and I just create whatever it is that I want to create, it's kind of like I still have that same fear of, there's so much possibility. What do I do with it?
Yes. So good.
And it's so fun and it's so scary at the same time, and I think that's part of why it's so fun. Like, isn't it weird?
It's like there is no belief police. You get to believe whatever you want. You get to experience whatever you want according to those beliefs. You can choose to stay stuck in the religion or the whatever the rules or the dogma or the generational patterns or the old behaviors. Guys, if that brings you peace and joy, keep it.
You know, it's one of the craziest things, like, whenever you get to that point where you're like, whatever the situation is, okay, I can either stay stuck in this belief or I can try to do it a different way. And then there's all these fears about, like, your brain tells you, well, if you do it that way, this person's not going to like it and they're going to do this or what, all those thoughts. And then you choose to do it that way anyway, even though your brain's telling you all this crap. And then none of that happens. And you're like, what's happening?
And yet
And
it's
it's like,
still
well,
what
if I could do that, well, then what else can I do that no one else is going to care about? You know?
That's one of the funnest parts is when you guys are playing and spinning in that and you won't put yourself out there and you're so afraid of what people think. And I already put that post, so God forbid I put it twice, like all of that drama stuff. And I'm like, could you tell me who they are? Like specifically, could you tell me each name? And y'all have the hardest time coming up with five. And it's usually my mom, my dad, and my best friend from high school, the people who love you the most. It's insane what our beliefs do, what our mind does, right?
Yeah. And like the whole issue of what if there is no problem? Like in meditation this morning, I wrote it down. Tell my brain to go and solve these problems. Where can I find more? What? Peace,
I want.
pleasure, play. How can I find more of that? I'm like, wow.
Yeah. When there's no problem, if you don't give your brain an assignment, it will create its own and it'll be the ones of the past.
Mhm.
So give it the problem to solve. I want more pleasure. I want more play. I want more abundance. Where do I have it now? Where do I like how can I attach myself to that now? It's been so fun watching you. I feel like it's like Christmas every day when I watch your eyes light up and that your smile gets lighter and brighter and easier.
Yeah, it's fun experiencing that too. But I feel like what we're talking about now is so far progressed, like so many years progressed from where I started. And like even when I talk to people now about how much I have changed just the way that I think and be and experience life, it's they don't even understand what the beginning stage of it is.
Mhm.
Like, where do you start with that? And for me, the starting, like I'm still starting and stopping all the time, but the starting point, like my head's really hard, and it took a lot of coaching
Mhm.
and just trying to think differently to get to the point of, oh, I can believe something different than what I currently believe, and even to just acknowledge what the belief is, because we're not conscious of them. We don't
Yeah.
know what they are.
And this is what most of y'all do. When you're in the discovery phase, you have so much shame and so much like beating yourself up at story that you're not sharing your journey. Like you're not being vulnerable and open because you're not even sure yet, right? But you're sure enough to stay interested, but you don't want to share it. And this is what I was like, share your journey as you go. The 8-year-old ugly. Do you remember how much I talk about the 8-year-old ugly? Your hair is
Yeah.
frizzy. Your parents didn't get you a straightening iron. Your teeth are like, you have some teeth missing. You have freckles. You don't wear makeup yet. You don't have braces yet. But you got to go through those stages. And if you do that and put yourself out there while you're creating your business, then you won't find yourself in the monsoon trying to explain something from, does that make sense? Like
Hmm.
where you are now,
Yeah.
you're trying to explain where your journey began, but it's so far away. How many years away does it feel like?
How many years away? I don't know, a
A
lifetime. That's what it
lifetime.
feels like. But it's really probably what 2 or 3 years ago.
For the picture was. So let's get an idea of what was your belief then. How were you living before the coffee shop experience? You were in Florida, you came, you moved back home, and you were already learning about all of this holistic stuff, but it wasn't available for you, obviously, right?
Right, right. It
Because
was I had already gone through so much learning for the point, like for the whole purpose of this was going to be my career, and I couldn't change it. Like I did it, now I'm done. Like this is what it is. There's no changing it. You can't go back and do something different. You can't change your mind. I, have all the debt to prove, and I have I graduated, I have the certificate and all that. So I can't do something other than what I had already done.
So
I
I'm
did
a
it, and
physical
that's it.
therapist, and because I invested in all that school and all that time, that's what I have to do. Is that your
Mhm.
belief?
Yeah.
And then you were
At the
feeling,
point that we're talking about, yeah.
yeah, and you were feeling,
Um, Not satisfied and not fulfilled, and it wasn't fun, and I felt limited. Like even like I felt like I was working for the insurance company and not for the patient, and I felt stuck, and it didn't feel right.
kind
It was
of like
like
your
a
soul
dread.
is gradually dying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And not to say that it's not a great thing. Like, yes, it is, but the way that we have to do it to follow the rules of healthcare and the insurance companies and all that stuff, we don't get to give the people what they really need. Like they really need more, but we're not allowed to give it to them.
Yeah, and so many health and wellness practitioners feel exactly like that. It's like they got into healing modalities, whether it's nursing or pharmacy or physical therapy. Mallarie's a physical therapist, by the way, for those who aren't sure. And they're like, but I don't even get to help the people. Like I don't, like I'm so stuck in the office doing the paperwork or making sure that the rules apply, or or like I only get 2 sessions with them and I really need 20, or that kind of stuff. So, but your belief that you had to continue doing that is what was creating the suffering, right? And so let's talk about what was the transition phase like when you were, okay, well, maybe I can do something different. Like you were starting to believe it, but your environment was thinking you
Hmm.
are crazy. Are you throwing away this over 6-figure opportunity, right? All of this stuff. So let's talk about what that felt like.
Huh. It felt like I was doing everything wrong, and I was like this terrible person who was throwing away this opportunity or throwing away all of the hard work that I had already put in, and like it was wasteful. And like it wasn't supposed to be that way. It wasn't allowed. It was like people just don't do that. And actually,
Ooh,
like lots of people do that.
people
Like
don't.
lots of people do. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. No one does that. No one else does that. Why are you doing that? So it was a lot of, and those were my thoughts, but the people around me were telling me those things too. Like, why are you taking this coach training? Like, what are you getting out of this? Are you going to become a coach? And I was like, and at the time I was like, oh no, no, I'm not going to be a coach. Like, I'm just, it's just for my own benefit, you know? And look at, look at me now. Um, but thank God I did, because look at what this year has brought.
Oh my
And
God. How would we have survived this year without these tools?
I don't know.
Without each
I don't know.
other.
Yeah. So it was a lot of shame and guilt for wanting to do something different, wanting to learn something more, wanting to just try something different.
Hmm.
And
Shame
like
and
it was
guilt.
selfish.
Shame and guilt for breaking the
Like I
rules.
was selfish for wanting more.
Guys, say it again, Mallory, because so many people feel this. I'm afraid to be too much. I'm afraid to want
Are you
more.
frozen?
I'm not frozen. You're not frozen. You are not frozen. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hear you now. It was like you froze for a second.
You never froze.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was the
Um,
guilt and the shame for wanting more, for being more, for, right, all of that. And
yeah.
like when you say that, give me an example of how that was stopping you, or because I know everyone here is listening to this understands that.
Hmm. I even remember whenever I wanted to start the family photography business, it was the very first beginning of anything. And it was like, I even talked to the priest about it, and I'm like, how do I know? Like, how do I know that God is saying it's okay for me to do this? Because how do I know that God's not going to say, that's a sin, that was selfish, you shouldn't have done that? Like, taking the time away from your family, to do something that was selfish. And even the priest was like, it's gonna feel easy. And I was like, okay. So I went with that. And that's what we talk about now. It's gonna feel easy. Like it's this, like we're all talking about the same stuff.
Yes. But you had a perception about
Yeah,
religion.
that
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny because Mallory and I both would go to the priest to ask everything. And then I'd go to the CPA and like confess my sins about like at the same time. It's insane, this stuff. Like breaking through these paradigms. It was, there's a lot of walls, especially if you have the heart to please God. Like create a clean heart in me, oh Lord. It's like I just want to do everything right, and I want to be like pious, and I want to like I just want to please. I just want to please you. I want to do what the good little Catholic girl or Christian girl or God-loving soul would do, right?
And like there was the part of me that was like in my heart, I was telling myself, I'm not doing something wrong. How could this that feels so right be wrong?
Because it
Like,
was being told to us. This tells the
yeah.
story. You went to mass while you were in this, and that is what the conversation was about, right?
Mhm.
Mindfulness and meditation were like, I'll let you tell the story. I heard it in my own words.
It was, I didn't actually hear this in church, but from very close friends who are very devout in their faith, saying like they were looking for options. They were like, well, yoga is wrong and against God, so we can't do yoga. But I found this a Catholic yoga, and it's like yoga to the rosary, and I'm like, it's the same thing. It's this, you're just moving your body. It's just a way to move your body. You don't have to be praying to someone to do that, but whatever you want to believe. And I was like mixed in all these different things, like um that kind of talk, and then people who were saying yoga is just exercise, and like coming from the physical therapist, like it's just moving your body and stretching, like we learned about teaching yoga to our patients in school.
Right.
Like we had someone come and taught us a couple of things, and it was just to get them to stretch in a way that was gentle, and like to get them in touch with their body. Like, how does this feel when you do this? Don't, push yourself if it hurts or whatever. So I was like, this is just exercise. I don't understand why you're saying that. Why would it be against God? That doesn't make sense to me.
That's the dissonance. That's the
Yeah.
dissonance of transformation. You're breaking the old paradigms, the old rules. You got this new stuff, but then you've been taught that you could go to, like, you got to be worried about the fire of hell, and you got to be worried about doing something wrong. Like, and so all of that starts coming together, and the mind is like trying to stay alive, stay safe, and
Yeah.
go to heaven, right? And so it's like, I
Mhm.
don't know about that. I remember the first time I did a beginner's yoga, a friend of mine and I went, and at the end we were like laying in on our sides, and she says, it was a Buddha quote, and it was the greatest, like it was about loving yourself or gentleness with yourself. And when she said the word Buddha, both our eyes binged open, and we looked at each other and we're like, we got to get out of here. But it was because we had been told that. It was so crazy. And so when I
And
saw
I
it in
would do
you, I was able to be with you and laugh with it because I get it. I was in the same experience, and I was told the same things,
yeah.
and it's still being told today. I remember someone sending me to a Women
Mhm.
of Grace because I was doing, energy work and Reiki and really understanding emotional processing. And they were like saying it was wrong and it was satanic and, all this stuff that Reiki is. And I was like, believing them. That's what kept me
Mhm.
back there for so long, is just being raised in this. It may just be this Southern culture. It may not be everywhere. As you guys who are here can kind of let us know what your experience has been of that. We live in an amazing place, but there is still some old folk tales. And that
Yeah.
was a big part of what you were in, because you were such a rule follower. You were such a wanting to please. And so it was really hard for you to break through that stuff, but it has been so fun watching you. So that's what your belief was like. And that's what your transition was like. So how would you describe how it is now in comparison?
I mean, I still go out and do research about things, but for the most part, I can ask myself the question and know that the answer that comes from me is coming from God. Like right for me. It might not be what anyone else wants me to do, and it might not be what they think is right. And for the most part, I'm okay with letting it be like that because
Mm.
I know that the answer is right for me. And that the hardest part, like, yes, it was a process of learning to ask myself rather than go and ask this person and that person and do all this research and make a list of pros and cons and all that stuff. But the hardest part is trusting that I have the answer within me
Mhm.
and moving forward with whatever the thing is in trust that it's right for me.
How would you like, what would you say about like you've done the coach training, you're in self-healing masters, you're still in the work of it. So what would you share with someone else about that? Like the experience of what we're doing in self-healing masters and discovering your design and your uniqueness and
This what we've been learning in self-healing masters has really helped a lot because learning the human design stuff is really helpful for me to ask myself the question and get that answer because like I know that I'm a generator with sacral authority, so I know I'm becoming more in tune with how to ask myself the question and listen for the answer. And then understanding how my brain works uniquely, like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I have that tendency to want to overthink and go and ask everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay, I see how I'm doing that. Let me come back to me and just come back to being present and ask me the question rather than looking for the answer everywhere else because I'm not going to find it. I'm going to find 10 million different answers that
Yeah.
are all going to conflict with each other and they're not really going to help me.
Because there's 10 million billion trillion designs and we're all
Yeah.
completely different, but we want to connect and we want to be the same. And then we get into this homogenized trying to make everybody do the same thing. That's what I love what you and I are doing about with in our businesses, is like helping you and you learning from the process with me on how every single one of your clients are different and the way we market them and the way we help them put themselves out there and that being part of their package and their business. And that's, I think, the greatest gift I give you guys is helping you discover your design and then treating you from that aligned perspective. And so I take into account and like whenever I'm thinking about you and thinking about you being a 3-5, it's always like, yep, we're just going to keep experiencing. We're going to keep deciding what's not working and we're going to throw it away. And then watch you do that. Exactly what you just did. You guys, you see the smile, like as soon as she's released of that prison of perfection, she just glows. And then her work is so fabulous. It's so creative and it flows and it moves. And when you get back into that pattern of perfection, it gets stifled and it gets scary. And you go into that, I want to do it right. I need to do it right. Little good girl thing that's back to following the rules. And so I feel like my job with you is like to just keep reminding you, no, we're just playing here. And she does my work. And like, so she's like, oh, the wrong email went out or, oh my God. And I'm like, yep. And let's take note for the next time. And you're like, you're not going to fuss. You're not mad. You're not like, I did it wrong. And it's like, there is no doing it wrong. There is no doing it wrong. It's all experience. And then look, see how she smiles again? It's so fun.
It's like part of me is waiting for you to like chastise me for doing it wrong as if there is no room in the world right now to make a mistake
Yeah.
and to learn from your mistakes. There's no room for that. And I was stuck in that forever. And I mean it still kind of wants to creep back and I'm like, nope, nope, we're just gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, made a mistake. Oh yeah, well, sorry I made a mistake, but I'm gonna do it this way.
Yes, yes. Because you've been living in, you've believed so strongly that the physical therapy career was the only way to make money, that was secure, that was grounded, that even it bouncing in and out, and even a month ago, right? Like it came back again because you were going back to your backup plan. And I'm like, no, boo, we done burnt that backup plan. This is what we're going to do moving forward. And you 6 timed your revenue. Six
Yeah.
times your revenue as a physical therapist. Like you've got to really be able to sit in that celebration and that belief because are you not still feeling doubt day in and day out? Yeah.
Yes.
Once you realize that your brain's going to always be doing that and you're like, oh, isn't that interesting? We're rolling anyway.
Didn't I text you about that this weekend? Like, I think I'm gonna have to do this, and you were like, "Yeah, that's just thoughts. Just go." enjoy your kid's birthday party and just forget about that for today. And I was like,
I'll see
oh,
you Monday. You're like, or I'll see you Sunday or whatever the next day was. And you're like, what? You're still waiting to get in trouble. All of you guys who've been through the integrative coaching program with me, because it's so hardcore, it's more like a mastery coaching program. And you're so used to that, that when we move into self-healing masters, which is really compassionate and fun and flowy, and you're just like surprised that I'm a human on ground level with you. It's so interesting.
but having that combination, like being able to have both of those is so important. Like we can't just do one way and it's going to work all the time.
Never, never, never.
Like we have to allow both of them.
And that's what our brain wants to do, especially I noticed this in yours, is like, even though you had all the goods here, you had all the direction to take you into your business, your mind still had some doubt. And so it would go watch this one and this one and this one and this one. And you come back so confused because that person said it and that person said it. And I was like, listen, we are creating something unique and different, and it's going to come from you. You're creating it with your personal experience. And it's what the entrepreneurial world needs right now that no one else is doing. So you're not going to find the evidence out there. So you're always going to be doubting and you're always going to be questioning and thinking that you're doing it wrong because that's your beliefs.
Yes, that is true.
And then the minute
still true.
the minute you get to do something creative, like this series, Malerie did all of the graphics for this series, did your emails, all your reminders. And it came together in what, literally, minutes. You got all of this stuff just came and you were like, you know what I love? That you let me go do my own thing. I'm like, hello. After you for 2 years to do your own thing, because it's in you. It's in you. You just didn't quite believe that it was.
Right. And I didn't. And I like, even whenever I was trying to grow as a photographer, like as an artist and trying to find where I am in the work that I was creating. And like I went to all these conferences and learned all these things and took all this education, thinking that there was a formula or a right way to do the things to where, like, when I looked at them, I would be like, oh yeah, that's my work. And it wasn't until I went to one, I paid a lot of money to go there and traveled all the way to Colorado and had all that terrible experience traveling, to find out, like, what my big takeaway from the conference was: don't try to be like everybody else, just do you. And I was like, what? So then I was like, okay, I quit trying to learn everybody else the way they do things. I quit that. And then I just went and did the stuff. And I was like, oh, and it always came back to, and still comes back to, being present and just creating what's in the vision that I have.
Yeah. It's like it keeps coming back as if the punchline approach were for real, right? We just got to come back to presence and unveil the BS so that we can navigate back to ourselves. PUN. Like, that's it. It's so simple, right?
Like,
it's the presence. It's the presence. I remember when you did the first photo shoot when we went to the coffee shop, because I was like, hey, I need a headshot, like fast, pronto. And you're like, okay, I can do it tomorrow, or I can do it this weekend, or whatever. Then we just went off on a whim. You had so much fun. Like, I had so much fun watching you have so much fun and create, like, you tell me, because I feel like it's your show. Tell me what you saw in yourself when you realized you could play and create.
That all of that work that I did to learn about, like, the technical side had started to pay off, because it didn't feel like I had to stop and think about changing the settings on the camera. I just, like, I said it, and then I just went and shot what it felt like, even before I knew what that meant.
Right. That's what I'm saying, because the second photo shoot wasn't quite the same, but
no, because we were both all up in our head about all the stuff.
Yes. But that first one was like, hey, just come and do this. Let's just go have some fun. And we had so much fun.
We did. Like, the second one, I was trying to be more strategic about it.
Yeah.
And that's where I got in my head, and I was like, oh, it didn't work for either of us.
And I'm a great catalyst for change. Let's just face it. Kim Gilry brings up some stuff. I'm an edge pusher. And if there's an edge to be pushed, it will happen. So let's talk about, what was the hardest part of your experience of transformation, where you were to where you are?
Um,
You had a lot of stuff with the family and the environment, like people in your close vicinity that were not seeing what you were seeing because you weren't sharing or telling, right? You just kind of
right.
like show up with this new identity.
Yeah, being like becoming that different person, and then the rest of the people who still knew you as like the old version of you, still expecting that person to show up, and then you feel that conflict whenever you're not that person anymore. Like you can't even go back to being that person, and it's just too painful to do it the old way. Like it's more painful to keep doing it the old way than the new way. But
Mhm.
the hardest part about the transition, which still comes up, is for me two things. Going through, I told Emily this last night. She was like coaching me through Facebook Messenger about a bunch of stuff. And it was my human design and my gene keys and all that stuff. They all say all you have to do is be present in everything that you do, and like the universe will open up for you. And being present is such a challenge for me. It
Mhm.
takes so much reminding myself, come back to presence, come back to presence, because I tend to overthink about everything, and my brain like goes 90 to nothing for little nothing things.
To go problem
I get
solve, doing its
yes,
thing, doing.
yes, doing its thing, and it's like having to catching myself in the act and then reminding myself to come back to presence.
Mhm, mhm.
So that is one of my greatest challenges, and I know that if ever I can master that, everything's gonna just, I don't know, maybe it won't. Everything's gonna change. That's what I think. But
Oh, I
that
do
and
think it's the
then
gift to come back to the P. That's what we say all the time. Go back to the P.
mhm. And then the second part is 100% trusting myself
Mhm.
instead of something outside of me.
So let's talk a second about like what I saw. One of your greatest challenges was you were so not in touch in your body with your emotions, which you didn't even know what you were thinking. You didn't even know that that was optional. It was just kind of happening because you were so out of the awareness. And I remember when I first started coaching you, and I would ask you if you were feeling a certain way, and then you would just do like, "How do you know that?" Yes, 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 yes. And then for a while, when I would ask you something, you would look, or someone else, you would look at me and ask me what you were feeling. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Even still now, like whenever it's like when you're coaching me or someone's coaching me, or and I'm stuck in like I'm in that, I don't know, that transition part, I guess. And I'm like,
At
what am I
frozen, it's like
feeling?
that freeze freak part,
Mhm.
right? It's like a
Yeah. That's when I'm like, when they say, what are you feeling? And I'm like, let me think about that. Because like the words don't come up. Even if I am now aware enough to feel it, like for so long, I didn't even like I had to go when we first started coaching, I had to go and research, like Google lists of emotion
yeah,
words
yeah.
and try and like read them and be like, well, what does that feel like? Well, what does that feel like? And then if something came up and I was feeling something, I would try to label it. And sometimes there are no labels.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just like trying to put into words what it is that I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So
This
it's
is
like I
something
couldn't
else
feel and I couldn't describe it.
that I think most people struggle with is because our feelings have been turned off. We've been told to shut up, don't cry, don't go. I mean, you should wait to go to the bathroom. You should wait to eat. You should wait. We've been told to do all this stuff by the system. And so we lose touch with our body's conversation, like with our relationship with ourself, that we can't trust ourselves. We need to turn off hunger. We need to turn off sleep. We need to turn off, like we're forced into that, right? When you're in PT school, you have to turn off sleep in order to study so that you can pass the test, right? And then so we have turned off our body's signals through all of the conditioning. And that's something I love about the integrative coaching, because we bring all of that into it. It's not just coaching the mind, but we're really working with the emotional system, with the nervous system. I mean, even bringing up finances and spirituality, it's the whole system. But the also in Self-Healing Masters too, it's the really trusting that you can feel this and work through it rather than reacting to it. Because when
Yeah.
that feeling would come up in your body, you would go into freeze and freak. And then you didn't have access to what you were feeling or what was going on, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. And it took a long time to get out of that because it took me so long to get to understand presence in the first place was step one, because my brain was so like always going.
I
And I
think it's
caught
because you're so
myself doing
smart.
that.
You type A guys who just got it all together and you go do your little college for many years and your little smart self at the top of the class and all that thing, you are the hardest nuts to crack. You know, it's like I do work with a lot of spirituals who I have to take them down from there and bring them here. Like, hey, we're here to have a human experience. Come back down to earth. And we have you guys who are all earth, and we got to like come back down and bring this inside of your body. Bring these, it's okay to go there. It's okay to feel there. But you could give a little bit of feedback on why is it so scary to go in our bodies? Because there are some things lurking there.
Yeah, there's some things that like some old beliefs that we don't realize are there that are painful to acknowledge. Like when you start going, like, you know, you think about sensitive subjects that people that, you know, there are people that don't want to talk about it. And it's like, well, why do they not want to talk about it? Because there's some sort of old memory, or there's some sort of like an experience that when I go back to it, it was painful to feel that emotion when I didn't have a label for it and couldn't communicate what I was feeling. And I don't want to go back there because it feels just as scary as being in there in the past. But
Yes.
now I have this different set of awareness and this different set of tools where it's okay to go there. Like I know, like I intellectually know, my brain knows, okay, it's actually safe to go back there and do and experience that and process that experience so that it's not gonna like haunt me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have to have like the courage to be able to let myself go there. And that's why I'm so grateful for having self-healing masters, because I feel like it's safe to go there. Like it's okay for me to have the courage to go there, and all the people that are watching me get coaching on it are not going to like judge me for it because they get it.
So it's like going back. We don't want to go back into what we don't want to experience, but once we process it one time, that's the integration. That's what we call this integrative coaching. And it's integrated, that experience is integrated in the physical body, mentally, emotionally, physically. Like if once it's integrated and then we embody that experience, that is done. That wound turns into a scar and it is
Right.
no longer activated and triggered and freaking you out. And that's why it's so much easier to coach you now. You like trust and you're ready. And you're like, yep, it's going to feel a little crappy and I'm ready. And it takes us minutes compared to what used to take weeks. You would spend in some of that stuff. And I'm the same. I can talk about it on, you know, in the same way because I did too. I was telling you an experience in meditation where it took me 6 hours of being frozen and then a 6-hour drive home and then 6 more days. It was like all these sixes, but I'm just like, God, how long is it going to take for my brain to really receive this? But I was in so much resistance. I couldn't see it. So let's talk about, that was the hardest part, was being a new identity and being still treated as the old identity. What would you tell others where you were in order to encourage them, like those who are where you were right now?
What
What
would I
would you tell them?
say?
So they were you coming in 28 years old, kids, marriage stuff, kids stuff, work stuff, because that's where you came in at. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
The
it was
relationship,
a lot.
the parenting, the worries about parenting, and the worries about career.
The thought that keeps coming up is, what if none of that stuff matters? What if all of that trying to make this person happy and act a certain way so that this person doesn't get mad at you, and you know, parent a certain way so that your parents don't think you're doing it wrong, and what if doing it wrong doesn't even matter? What if no one even cares? Like what if it's possible that none of that stuff is even important? And I don't know if I would even be able to receive that at, like, if I would have been able to receive that at the time. I don't know.
What
I
if it's
think it
not
just took,
wrong?
yeah, what if it's not wrong? What if there is no right?
What if it's all
Like,
learning?
no. What if, let me change that around. There is no right and wrong. And it's just part of the experience.
Mhm.
And like there's no separation like this God and that God, and there's no separation of this, there's no bad people and good people. There's just all people, and we're all connected to each other, and we're all connected to God. And sometimes things happen and you can't stop those things from happening, you know, just
What if there's no better or worse people? What if there's no higher level people? What if there's no, like, what if influencers are just humans and
What
people?
if there's no difference between me and everybody else?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
hmm
like, what if I was meant for so much more than what I was doing? And the path to getting there was to stop looking for all the answers outside of me.
Can I get an amen? Come on, guys. Can we get an amen? What let's talk about, because I feel like a big change happened when I was researching your profile, and I was like telling you some stuff, and I was like, okay, here, this is what I see is the potential in you. And we had a conversation, I think it was on a Saturday, you were fishing with the kids, and I said, just listen, I'm just going to read it to you. I just want you to receive, you can receive this, because I feel like that was really a big turning point for you. So how did you feel when I saw you, when I fully saw parts of you that you had not even seen yet?
It's another instance where I don't think I can't explain how I felt, but it was like I remember exactly where we were, what we were doing, and I like my heart was beating out of my chest, and I like it felt like the truth, and it
Mm,
felt right, and it felt good. Like it felt light, and it felt like that was like instantly I was like, that's what I want to do. I don't know what it is, but I want to go in that direction because that feels fun. And
mhm,
like I'm tired of living in this situation where everything feels heavy and everything sucks. And like another belief I had was that anything worth doing was going to be hard. Like anything that was going to bring you something positive in your life was going to be hard. And I was tired of thinking like that. And whenever you read all that stuff to me, like it was a combination of hearing things that I had never heard about myself before, but blended in with that were things that I already knew about myself.
mhm,
So I figured it had to be true.
mhm.
It couldn't be just some made up thing. It had to be real. And that's what opened me up to hearing more about human design and gene keys because I'm like, I don't know, astrology and the planet. Like the old me would have been like, that's the devil. We can't listen to that. But like when you hear the like where it came from and like the ancient people that study this stuff and like you talk about the farmer's almanac, like why would we not listen to that stuff? Why would we
If
not
they look
just
at it to decide when to plant beans, it pretty much has an effect on us. Yeah.
yeah, yes.
When there's a full moon and things are falling apart, right? There's like, you hear people, the teachers, the nurses at the hospital.
Mhm.
All right.
So there
So
has to be some truth in it.
yeah. So it's like, how do you feel when you begin to recognize all of the potential inside of yourself? I think that was a big changing point for you. And when looking back, what's one thing your now self would tell your past self? So you looking back 2 or 3 years when you were coming in, when you were having those doubts, when you were not so sure, what would you tell her now?
Try to stop fighting what is not meant to be for you. Let that stuff go and let it be easy. What's meant for you will come into your life when you let it. Stop resisting it.
What
Like
about the
stop
part of
fighting
her
for
that,
what doesn't belong.
oh, sorry, say it again.
Stop fighting for what doesn't belong there.
What would you
And it
tell the,
wasn't, and when I say stop fighting for what doesn't belong in your life, it's not getting rid of people in my life that I didn't want there. That wasn't it. It was only the way that I was thinking about things.
guys, I'm not sure if you got that, but I want to say it again because I think it's so important. We don't have to throw people away.
Mm.
We don't have to throw relationships away. Sometimes, yes, sometimes if there's abuse and there's like there, you have no other choice but to get away. But I think there's a thought that we have to get rid of the old part of our lives. That is not true. Mallory is still in the same marriage. She still has the same kids. She still has the same parents. She still has the same relationship with employers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And all that change was the way that I think about my life and embodying all the work that we've done.
The embodiment. I think the embodiment is the key. That's what I think Self-Healing Masters is so good at, is like really work embodying it. What would you tell the part of yourself that was not understanding and fearful that this would be demonic or cultic or whatever it was? Like, what would you say to that person, that yourself? Because she was scared, right? It's like a little scared kitten. Like, I want it, but I don't know, kind of holding back. What would you tell that part of yourself?
It was that you're not going to get lost in something that's not of God. Like, God is everywhere. God is within you. And whenever you're coming from your whole self, that is God living through you. So you can't like be separated from God except for in your own thoughts. Like, you're not going to be sent to hell or whatever. And what if heaven and hell, we actually create them for ourselves?
I experienced hell, guys. I'm telling you. That's what I was trying to run away from. Emily says that just gave me the chills.
Yeah, she had a similar experience.
What if?
So many what ifs. Like, what if we don't have to be scared of asking questions?
What would you say to those listening about the experiences we have at the integrative healing retreats?
There's nothing else like that, because it's doing this work that has made such a huge impact, but it's like condensed because you're doing it with other people who, like, physically they're there with you. It's not just in a computer screen. They're physically there with you. You can feel that energy. And I don't know, I almost don't have any other words to explain it.
I think it's just imprint.
So powerful.
I think the experience is imprinted because of the way it's scheduled and the way it flows. That, would you say for someone who wasn't a big feeler, that it's more about the imprinted feeling, the embodiment of the experience?
Yeah, I think so. That's probably a good way to describe it. And being able to recreate that feeling, not like it happened one time and it's never going to happen again. Like, you can have that experience over and over and over.
All right.
It's really powerful.
So we're going to end this. What's one thing that you want to tell others, or what's something that I didn't ask you that you maybe wrote down and said you wanted to talk about? Or
I did not take notes. I did good, and I did not take notes. I did read the questions though.
Where do you want
life is meant to be experienced and in joy. Like, everything doesn't have to be perfect in your circumstances of life for you to feel the joy and the gratitude and to just have fun with it. Like, it can be fun even if it's not perfect.
All right. Thank you for coming. I appreciate your time. We're going to end the recording, and we're going to give these people opportunities if they want to meet you or ask questions or anything, or just give feedback. So thank you guys for catching the third episode of the Believing Better series with Malerie. This will be, you'll have the replay from here.